Welcome to NVL Travel Documentary. New York, often celebrated as the city of dreams. But in 2025, another reality is surfacing, and it's time we face it. Today we explore the untold stories hidden behind luxury apartments and five-star hotels. Just blocks away from Wall Street, entire communities are sleeping in tents, under scaffolding or on cold concrete. In one neighborhood, rooftop bars are packed. In another, social workers hand out blankets to people who haven't seen a bed in months. You'll hear voices from the street, see the resilience of people society has overlooked, and learn what's really fueling this humanitarian crisis, from housing costs to mental health to addiction. In this eye-opening documentary, we speak with people who were once thriving and now just surviving. Follow frontline volunteers battling not just poverty, but invisibility. And ask the question, can New York still call itself a beacon of hope? Watch until the end. This might be the most honest look at the Big Apple you've ever seen. Number 1. New York City, Glamour and Struggle. New York City. Just hearing the name conjures up 1,000 images, towering skyscrapers slicing through the clouds, Broadway lights blinking like stars that never sleep. Wall Street, Fifth Avenue, Central Park. It's a city that moves so fast, even time seems out of breath. With over 8 million people from nearly 200 different countries, New York is not just a city, it's a world of its own. A place where dreams are born on street corners and ambition is served with every morning coffee. Some call it the Big Apple, others call it the capital of the world. From the fashion runways of Soho to the food carts of Queens, from high finance in Manhattan to street musicians in the Bronx, New York is a celebration of culture, chaos, and endless possibilities. But behind all that noise, all that neon, is a silence we rarely talk about. Because while millions chase dreams here, thousands struggle just to survive. This is not just a story about New York's beauty. It's about the part we rarely see and the people we often walk past without ever looking back. Every single night, over 60,000 people seek refuge in New York City's shelter system. That's not just a number. That's 60,000 names, 60,000 stories, and more heartbreakingly, over 20,000 of them are children. Imagine lining them up, shoulder to shoulder. That human chain would stretch from the heart of Manhattan all the way across the Hudson River to New Jersey. And that's just the people we can count. Because these numbers don't include the invisible ones, those who sleep curled up on subway benches, in cardboard shanties under overpasses, or tucked away in dark corners of parks and parking lots. They don't show up in the system, but they're there, hiding from the cold, the danger, and sometimes the shame. And there's more. In New York City, a place often described as the financial capital of the world, the average life expectancy of a homeless person is nearly 20 years shorter than that of the general population. 20 years. That's 2 entire decades stolen, not by time, but by systemic neglect. It's a cruel paradox, isn't it? This is the same city that boasts billion-dollar skyscrapers, where penthouse apartments go for over $100 million, and yet, it holds the highest homeless population in all of the United States. A city where wealth and poverty exist not just side by side, but often on the same block. So the next time we marvel at New York's glittering skyline, maybe we should ask, what's hiding in the shadows of those towers? Number 2. Why do people become homeless? A. The cost of living is too high. In New York City, everything costs more, including the right to simply exist. A one-bedroom apartment in Manhattan, over $4,200 a month. The average wage for someone working full-time at minimum wage? Just around $2,600 before taxes. Now, let's do the math. You could spend your entire paycheck and still be hundreds of dollars short before buying food, medicine, or even a subway ticket. One slice of pizza costs $4. One apartment costs $4,200. Something's not adding up. For low-income workers, this city has become a trap disguised as a dream. Many work full-time, even overtime, and still sleep in shelters or on friends' couches. They're called the working homeless, and their numbers are rising. And here's the thing. Rent in New York has gone up almost 20% in the past 3 years alone. Meanwhile, wages barely moved. In this city, one small misstep, an injury, a missed paycheck, or a rent hike can mean the difference between a roof and a sleeping bag on the sidewalk. That's not just expensive, that's unsustainable. And for tens of thousands, it's become unlivable. The lack of affordable housing. Even if you work hard, even if you play by the rules, where do you go when there's simply nowhere affordable to live? New York City has long promised affordable housing, but for most, it's become a waiting game with no finish line. The demand is massive, the supply, tragically slow. There are programs, public housing, rent vouchers, supportive units, but they're buried under decades of delay, underfunding, and political red tape. Entire buildings meant to house vulnerable families sit half-finished, or worse, abandoned, with graffiti-covered walls and rusted doors, haunting reminders of promises never. We met one woman, Teresa. She applied for housing 5 years ago. She still hasn't heard back. They said I was on the list, she told us, standing outside a shelter. I guess they never said how long the list was. As of 2025, the waiting list for affordable housing in New York exceeds 240,000 households. That's not a list, that's a backlog. And for those waiting, every day without a home is a battle they're slowly losing. And here's the kicker. While thousands go without a place to sleep, luxury apartments continue to rise. Some of them stay empty investments for billionaires, not homes for families. So when we ask, why are there so many homeless people? Maybe the real question is, why are there so few homes that people can actually afford? C. Personal events. Sometimes, it doesn't take a lifetime of bad decisions to end up on the street. Sometimes, it just takes one accident. Meet John. He was a construction worker, strong, dependable, up at dawn, home by dusk. Until one day on the job, a steel beam slipped, and so did his future. A shattered leg, months of recovery, no income, no health insurance. Just like that, the paycheck stopped. Then came the eviction notice. Then came the silence from friends, the cold shoulder of the system, and the reality no one prepares you for. Lose your job, you lose your home, lose your mailing address, and without an address, you can't apply for benefits. You can't even apply for a job. It's a cruel domino effect, and once it starts falling, it moves fast. We saw John sitting on the sidewalk outside a hospital, his legs still wrapped in gauze. He told us, "They said I didn't have the right papers. I said I didn't have a place to get them mailed." In a city that prides itself on innovation, on ambition, on opportunity, there was no cushion to catch him. No second chances, no safety net, just concrete, bureaucracy, and time ticking louder with every passing day. Because in New York, if you fall, and fall alone, sometimes the only thing waiting for you at the bottom is the sidewalk. People who work but still do not have enough to live on. Maria wakes up every day at 4 in the morning. She makes breakfast for her 2 kids, toast, if there's bread, water, if there's no milk. By 5, she's on a bus heading to her first job at a diner in Midtown. At 3 in the afternoon, she clocks out and runs literally to her second job cleaning offices in the Upper West Side. By the time she gets back to the shelter, it's almost 1 o'clock in the morning. She sleeps 4 hours a night, every night. She works 60 hours a week, every week. And yet, she has no home to call her own. Maria is one of thousands of working homeless in New York City, people who do everything right. They work, they raise families, they pay taxes. But still, they can't afford a roof over their heads. Minimum wage in New York is $15 an hour. That's about $2,600 a month before taxes. But rent for even the cheapest apartments often starts at $3,000. And that's not counting childcare, food, transit, or medical expenses. "I'm not lazy," Maria told us. "I'm just losing a game that was rigged before I even sat down." She sends her kids to a neighbor during her night shifts. She hides the fact they live in shelters so they don't get bullied at school. She applies for housing assistance, but the waiting list is years long. Her story isn't rare, it's just rarely told, because when you pass someone in uniform mopping floor, but in this city, they might be. Hard work should mean stability, but for too many New Yorkers, it only guarantees exhaustion, not a home. In the chaos of a busy station, a woman sits on a bench, sketching on a torn piece of cardboard. She's mumbling to herself, not loud, not aggressive, just disconnected. Her name is Lisa. She once studied art. She once had a job. She once had a home. Then the voices came, the panic, the fear of crowds, the fear of light, the fear of her own mind. "I'm scared of people. I'm scared of the light. I'm scared of me," Lisa whispered, her eyes darting between us and the floor. But no one helps. No one ever helps. Lisa is not alone. In New York City, 1 out of every 3 homeless individuals suffers from severe mental illness, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, major depression, and yet, access to mental health care is limited. No insurance, no ID, no permanent address. Good luck getting treatment. Even emergency psychiatric beds are in short supply, and the few programs that do exist are often overwhelmed, underfunded, and difficult to navigate, especially for someone already in crisis. Illness, left untreated, becomes a trap. You lose your job, then your home, then your ability to seek help, and the more time you spend on the street, the worse it gets. Anxiety turns into psychosis, paranoia turns into violence, and hope fades into survival. Worse still, the public often sees these individuals as dangerous, dirty, or lost causes. But behind every episode, there is a person, a memory, a family, a version of themselves they can barely remember. Mental illness isn't a moral failure. It's a health crisis made worse by a system that abandons the sick when they need care the most. And in this city, that abandonment is happening in broad daylight. Every day. Trev. Lam Dung Chat Gay Ian. Underneath a bridge in Brooklyn, we met Eric. He was shivering, holding a paper bag, sitting on a flattened milk crate. His eyes were bloodshot, but his voice was surprisingly calm. "Drinking helps me forget I'm cold. Helps me forget I'm hungry. But when I wake up, I'm still on the sidewalk." Eric used to be a delivery driver. He lost his apartment after missing 2 months of rent during the pandemic. He started drinking to numb the shame, then the pain, then the hunger. Then he just kept going. Addiction is often painted as the cause of homelessness, but in truth, more often than not, it's the consequence. Imagine losing everything, your job, your support system, your identity, and then being surrounded by nothing but noise, cold, fear, and rejection. Wouldn't you want to feel nothing? In New York City, substance abuse affects a large portion of the homeless population. As of 2025, it's estimated that nearly half of all unsheltered individuals struggle with alcohol or drug dependency, not because they're criminals or lost causes, but because they're surviving the only way they know how. And the help they need, it's either too far, too expensive, or too complicated to access. Rehab centers are scarce, programs have wait lists, and relapse, almost inevitable when your only recovery space is a park bench. Addiction doesn't just destroy the body, it erodes dignity. And when society looks at you through the lens of your addiction, it forgets the human being underneath. Eric didn't ask for pity. He just asked if we had a pair of socks, and that says more about the problem than any statistic ever could. Gee, ineffective social system. The idea of a social safety net is simple. If you fall, whether from illness, job loss, or personal tragedy, something should catch you. But in New York City, that net is full of holes. We met David, a 58-year-old veteran. After losing his job during the pandemic, he applied for housing assistance. But there was a single typo in his last name on one of his ID documents. Because of that, his application was denied. He tried to fix it, but without a permanent address, the new documents couldn't be mailed to him. Without updated ID, he couldn't reapply. Without benefits, he couldn't get housing. And without housing, he couldn't fix his ID. I kept going in circles, David told us. Every door I knocked on led to another locked one. It's not just David. Across New York, thousands of people are trapped in a system that was never designed for emergencies, only efficiency. Want to see a caseworker? Wait 6 weeks. Lost your job? Better hope you have Wi-Fi, a working phone, and a mailing address to complete the forms. Need mental health support? There's a hotline, but it might be full. Need housing now? Good luck. The waiting list is over 250,000 names long. And what happens when you fall through the cracks? Nothing. No alarms, no one notices. You just disappear. It's not that people are lazy, it's that the system asks them to climb out of a pit. While tying their hands behind their backs, we spend billions on bureaucracy, but too often we forget the very people that bureaucracy was built to serve. Number 3. Shelters, or shame, hidden crisis. By law, New York City must provide temporary shelter to anyone who needs it. It's the only city in the United States with such a legal guarantee. On paper, it sounds like progress, but step inside one of these shelters and the picture quickly changes. We visited one facility in the Bronx, once a public school, now housing over 40 people in a single room. Bunk beds stacked tightly wall to wall, fluorescent lights flickering overhead, bags crammed beneath beds, coughs, snores, whispers, arguments, a constant buzz of survival echoing off the cinder block walls. There's a curfew at 10 o'clock, metal detectors at the entrance, rules so strict they feel more like a detention center than a refuge. It's not a home, one woman told us. It's a place you try to survive until tomorrow. Many shelters are overcrowded, understaffed, and underfunded. Basic supplies like soap and menstrual pads run out. In the winter, heating systems break. In the summer, it's stifling. For many, the fear isn't just discomfort, it's real danger, especially for women, LGBTQ+ individuals, and those with mental health challenges. We met Jay, a transgender teen who left home at 17. They shared, "I got punched in the face while I was asleep. No one helped. They told me not to start trouble, but all I did was exist." Stories like Jay's are far too common. Assaults go unreported, victims stay silent to avoid retaliation, or worse, to avoid losing their spot in line for a bed. And so, for thousands of New Yorkers, the choice becomes devastatingly simple. Sleep in a shelter where you might get hurt, or sleep on the sidewalk and try to disappear. It's a cruel paradox. A city proud of its shelter system, but filled with people who would rather brave the cold pavement than walk through those doors again. Because for them, freedom with risk feels safer than shelter with fear. It makes you ask, what does it mean to provide housing, if the housing feels like punishment? A roof isn't enough, not if it comes with trauma. Not if it costs your dignity. Not if it makes you feel less human than you already do. Number 4, the helpers, restoring dignity. When the system falls short, and it often does, it's the nonprofits that step in to catch what's left. Across New York City, organizations like Coalition for the Homeless, the Bowery Mission, and dozens more operate quietly but relentlessly, offering not just services, but dignity. They serve thousands of hot meals every day, not just calories, but comfort. A bowl of soup, a warm plate, a seat at a table where no one asks questions you can't answer. For many, it's the first kind gesture they've received in weeks. But they go further. These groups help people apply for jobs, rebuild resumes, find clean clothes, practice interviews. They offer mental health counseling and trauma support, because healing doesn't stop at the skin. They run mobile medical vans. tiny clinics on wheels that pull up in parking lots and under bridges, checking blood pressure, dressing wounds, offering flu shots and hope. And for those ready to take the next step, they provide transitional housing, safe spaces designed specifically for children, single mothers, the elderly, the LGBTQ+ community, each with unique needs and untold stories. We returned to the urban garden in Brooklyn and found Sarah watering kale and humming softly to herself. She now worked part-time for the very nonprofit that helped her off the street. "It's not just a job," she told us. "It's a way to give back what was given to me." Another program, called Streetwise, trains people experiencing homelessness to sell street newspapers, a small but powerful way to earn income, build routine, and rediscover self-worth. "When people buy from me," one vendor said, "they see me, not just a homeless guy on the corner. Me." These organizations don't have billion-dollar budgets. What they do have is heart, tenacity, and a belief that everyone deserves a second chance, no matter how far they've fallen. In a city of glass towers and gated doors, these are the open hands, reaching, feeding, listening, and rebuilding one life at a time. Number 5. Street life, safety versus survival. Sleeping on the streets isn't just uncomfortable, it's dangerous, especially if you're a woman, a teenager, elderly, or part of the LGBTQ+ community. For them, every night is a gamble between safety and survival. Many are too afraid to sleep in shelters, not because they've been assaulted, harassed, or humiliated inside. On the streets, there are no locks, no protection, no boundaries, just darkness, and whatever comes with it. We spoke to Mia, a 22-year-old who fled her abusive stepfather only to face new dangers every night. "I sleep with my shoes on," she told us, "because I never know when I'll have to run." The risks go beyond violence. Without consistent food, many rely on church pantries or soup kitchens. That means poor nutrition, weakened immune systems, and no access to safe drinking water. Illness spreads fast, untreated infections, respiratory problems, chronic pain, but even getting help is complicated. Without a permanent address, you can't register for most public services. No address means no ID renewal. No ID means no job application. No job means no income. And no income means another night outside. Children and teens are especially vulnerable. Alone, scared, and often invisible to the system, they become targets for trafficking, exploitation, and abuse. Many never make it back. And then there are the elderly, the ones who are forgotten even faster than they fall. Last winter, during a snowstorm that blanketed New York in ice and wind, an older man was found frozen to death in a park near Queens. His name was Samuel. He was 74. He'd tried to get into a shelter but was turned away because there were no beds left. He died holding a plastic bag filled with socks and canned food. That bag was everything he had. We call it homelessness. But what it really is exposure. Exposure to violence, to cold, to hunger, to fear, and for too many, exposure to a slow death no one seems to notice until it's too late. Number 6. Street families, the forgotten care. In a city that often looks the other way, people on the streets have learned to look out for each other. They build what they can from what they have, and what they have most is each other. Out here, survival isn't just about staying warm or fed, it's about not disappearing completely. And so, they form their own families, makeshift communities, circles of trust in places where trust is hard to come by. They share food, take turns keeping watch while others sleep, pass around hand warmers, socks, medicine. We visited a park in Lower Manhattan just before dusk. A group of 10 people sat in a circle, tearing pieces off a donated loaf of bread. One man poured instant soup into recycled cups. No one had much, but no one went without. One of them smiled and said, "No one here has a lot, but everyone shares something." This quiet resilience isn't loud. It doesn't make headlines, but it's there, in the way someone gives up their last blanket for an older woman, in how they lift each other up when someone finds work, even if it's just a few hours washing dishes or sweeping sidewalks. These tiny victories, a pair of clean socks, a full stomach, a night in a real bed, they matter. They remind people that they are still human, still deserving, still alive. And when someone finally finds a job, when someone signs the lease to a small apartment, when someone smiles for the first time in months, the whole community celebrates. Because in a world that forgets them, they refuse to forget each other. In these acts of care, in these small but mighty triumphs, hope lives on. Not because someone rescued them, but because they refuse to give up on each other. Number 7. What about us? Your move. Not all of us can fix the system, but all of us visitors, locals, students, commuters, neighbors can do something. And often, it's the smallest actions that make the biggest difference. A warm smile, a simple hello, a conversation that starts with curiosity instead of judgment. You can donate a blanket, volunteer a few hours at a shelter, share a meal, support organizations on the front lines, the ones who do the work we rarely see. And most importantly, you can choose to treat every person you pass, housed or unhoused, with the same basic respect we all deserve. We met a group of high school students in Queens. They weren't activists or politicians, just kids. But they organized a winter drive, collected over 100 blankets, and delivered them to a family shelter. One of them said, "We can't fix everything, but we can help someone sleep warmer tonight." That's where it starts. So now we ask you, the viewer, 2 simple questions. If tomorrow you lost your income, your apartment, your safety net, what would you want from the community around you? And more importantly, what kind of community do you want to help build, starting today? Because change doesn't begin in policy. It begins in perspective, in how we see each other, in how we act when no one is watching, and maybe, just maybe, in what we choose to do the moment this video ends. This isn't about saving the world, it's about not forgetting the people who've been left out of it. Because a warmer world starts with just one person who refuses to look away. Homelessness is not an identity. It is not laziness. It is not failure. It is a circumstance, a fragile moment, and it can happen to anyone. Your neighbor, your teacher, your friend, even you. Solving this crisis will take more than compassion. It will take real structural change, more affordable housing, accessible mental health services, job training programs, and most of all, collaboration. Governments, nonprofits, communities, and people like you. Because the truth is, no one makes it alone, and no one should have to. At NVL Travel Documentary, we believe in shining a light not just on landscapes and landmarks, but on the lives that make a city what it truly is. In the coming episodes, we'll travel to cities around the world, exploring how different communities are confronting the same challenges and what we can learn from each other. But for now, if this story moved you, if even one person stayed in your heart, then we ask just one thing. Like, comment, subscribe, not for numbers, but for voices, so these stories don't get buried, so these people are not forgotten. You don't have to change the world, you just have to refuse to turn away from a human being. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next city.